At 79, Barry Gibb finally tells the truth about Roy Orbison. Barry Gibb was born Barry Allen Crompton Gibb on September 1, 1946, in Douglas on the Isle of Man, and is one of the most important and lasting people in the history of popular music. He was the second of 5 kids, born to Hugh and Barbara Gibb, and from when he was little, it became clear that Barry was meant for a life in music. His natural gift for melody and his feel for songwriting made him special, and by the time he was just a teenager, he was already building what would later become the famous Bee Gees, along with his younger twin brothers, Robin and Maurice Gibb. Barry moved with his family to Redcliffe, Queensland, Australia. In the late 1950s, it was there that the boys first got attention as entertainers, performing in their town and working on their singing together, which would go on to make their sound special. Barry quickly became the main creative person of the group, not only as their main singer, but also as their main songwriter. His high singing voice would later become infamous, but even in the early years, his ability to write songs with strong feelings and memorable tunes was clear to see. In the 1960s, the Gibb family went back to England to look for bigger chances in music, and it was in London that the Bee Gees got their first wave of worldwide fame. Songs such as New York Mining Disaster 1941, To Love Somebody, and Massachusetts made them one of the best singing groups of that time. These songs showed Barry's strength as a songwriter who could mix storytelling with emotion, and his ability to connect deeply with people of all ages. The 1970 seconds saw the Bee Gees change themselves, and Barry was the center of this change. With disco music becoming popular, Barry's high singing voice, heard in hits like Staying Alive, Night Fever, and How Deep Is Your Love, became the heartbeat of that time. The group's work on the Saturday Night Fever movie music turned them into cultural icons and made their place in music history solid. The movie music sold tens of millions of copies around the world, earning Grammy Awards and forever connecting the Bee Gees with the golden age of disco. Barry's amazing voice and incredible songwriting ability made him one of the most well-known and respected people in music. In 2001, the legendary Bee Gees ended a huge chapter in music history with the release of what would be their final studio album, Islands in Stream. This project, filled with the group's special harmonies and emotional storytelling, showed the end of decades of amazing work that had already changed the world of pop, disco, and rock music. Yet for Barry Gibb, the end of the Bee Gees as a recording group did not mean the end of his creativity. It was in many ways the beginning of a deeply personal and richly team-working new time. The next year in 2002, Barry went into the studio with none other than Michael Jackson, a friend and fellow icon of the music industry. Together they recorded the single All in Your Name, a song born out of respect for each other and a shared desire to use music as a voice for unity and love. The song served as a touching reminder of the bond between two of the most important people in modern music, mixing Barry's special warmth with Jackson's energetic power. Fans called the team up a historic meeting of legends, one that showed Barry's songwriting importance in a quickly changing music scene. As the 10 years went on, Barry shifted his focus toward more close and personal projects. One of the most touching moments of this time came when he sang backup vocals on Living in the Rain, a single put out by his son, Steve Gibb. This act was not only musical support, but also a sign of Barry's deep pride in watching his children carry forward the family's artistic legacy. At the same time, Barry himself kept creating new material, putting out heartfelt songs such as Drown in the River, Grey Ghost, and Daddy's Little Girl. Each of these songs showed a different side of his artistry, whether it was storytelling based in Americana, thoughtful ballads, or tender expressions of being a father. In 2007, Barry further made solid his role as a respected elder statesman of music when he joined the judges panel on American Idol during its 6th season. For millions of viewers, seeing him guide aspiring performers was nothing short of inspiring. His presence brought not only believability but also warmth and wisdom as he encouraged young talents to chase their dreams with the same passion that had carried him from humble beginnings in Australia to worldwide superstardom. This role introduced Barry to a new generation of fans who may have only known the Bee Gees by reputation, letting them see firsthand the humanity and artistry of the man behind the hits. Beyond the Bee Gees, Barry also showed an amazing ability to write and produce for other artists. He wrote hits for legends such as Barbra Streisand, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Diana Ross, and Dionne Warwick, among many others. His ability as a songwriter showed that he could write hits across types of music, pop, country, R&B, always with same sensitivity and musical genius that defined his own performances, despite personal tragedies, including heartbreaking losses of his brothers, Maurice in 2003 and Robin in 2012. Barry continued to carry the Bee Gees legacy forward with grace and strength. He faced these difficult times with toughness, often speaking of his brothers with love and respect while he also continuing to honor their memory through music. His ability to keep going and remain committed to his art has made him not only a celebrated musician, but also a symbol of toughness and dedication. Barry's career has lasted over 60 years, and in that time, he has sold hundreds of millions of records, received countless awards, and been recognized with some of the highest honors in the music industry. In 1997, the Bee Gees were put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Barry himself was knighted in 2018 for his services to music and charity, becoming Sir Barry Gibb. These honors only highlight what fans have always known, that Barry Gibb's contributions to music are timeless and immeasurable. On August 22, 1966, Barry Gibb, then a rising star who was beginning to gain recognition as a member of the Bee Gees alongside his brothers, took a major step in his personal life when he married Maureen Bates. At that time, Barry was still a young man in his late teens, dealing with both the demands of a music career and the responsibilities of married life. Maureen, who had been part of Barry's early world before the family's fame shot up high, represented a connection to a quieter, more grounded lifestyle than one he would soon experience as an international celebrity. Their marriage, however, was not meant to last. The pressures of Barry's quickly growing career in the music industry, combined with the challenges of adjusting to married life at such a young age, placed a huge strain on the relationship. Despite their efforts to make it work, the onion proved to be short-lived. After less than 4 years together, Barry and Maureen divorced, bringing an end to the chapter of his early personal journey. Although their relationship did not last, it marked an important growing period in Barry's life as he was learning to balance the intense spotlight of fame with the complications of love and personal responsibility. Only a few years later, Barry Gibb would find lasting love. On September 1, 1970, his own 24th birthday, Barry entered into a marriage that will define the rest of his life. He married Linda Gray, a former English beauty queen who had previously been crowned Miss Edinburgh. Linda was admired not only for her striking beauty but also for her intelligence, grace, and supportive nature. From the beginning, Barry and Linda shared a strong connection, and their marriage would go to become one of the most lasting partnerships in the world of entertainment. Unlike his first marriage, this union gave Barry a foundation of stability and unwavering support, something that proved very valuable as he and his brothers rose to even greater heights of fame in the 1970s with the Bee Gees' global dominance. Together, Barry and Linda built a large and loving family. They were blessed with 5 children, and each of them added joy and richness to their lives. Their first son, Stephen, followed in his father's footsteps and pursued a career in music, becoming a respected guitarist and songwriter in his own right, event performing with his father and uncles on occasion. Their second son, Ashley, chose a quieter path away from Thelamelit, focusing instead on personal interests and family life. Their third son, Travis, also lived more privately, showing how Barry and Linda's children had the freedom to find their own way without being overshadowed by their father's towering legacy. Their youngest son, Michael, was named in honor of the late pop superstar Michael Jackson, reflecting Barry's friendship and admiration for him. Finally, their only daughter, Alexandra, brought balance to the family, cherished deeply by both Barry and Linda as the youngest and only girl among her 4 brothers. Through the years, Barry often spoke about how important Linda and their children were to him. Despite his demanding schedule as a world-famous musician, songwriter, and performer, Barry always emphasized the importance of family, and Linda became his anchor during the turbulent highs and lows of life in the spotlight. Their lasting marriage stood as a rare example in show business of a union that not only lasted but grew stronger with time, providing Barry with the love, loyalty, and grounding that helped him sustain a career spanning more than 6 decades. For decades, Barry Gibb, the last surviving member of the Bee Gees, has carried the weight of both his family's incredible musical legacy and the friendships he built with some of the greatest artists of the 20th century. Among those legendary figures was Roy Orbison, a man whose haunting voice, dark sunglasses, and mysterious presence carved a unique place in rock and roll history. Now at the age of 79, Barry Gibb has opened up in a deeply personal way about what Roy Orbison truly meant to him, not just as a fellow artist, but as a source of inspiration and friendship that shaped his own journey through music. Roy had one of the most amazing voices I have ever heard in my life, Barry said. It wasn't just singing. It was almost like he was pulling something out of the heavens. You could feel every bit of pain, joy, and longing in that voice. Nobody could do what Roy could. Barry Gibb remembers clearly how as a young man growing up with his brothers Robin and Maurice, the music of Roy Orbison wasn't just popular, it was a revelation. While Elvis Presley lit the spark for many hopeful performers, Orbison songs like Crying, Only the Lonely, and Oh, Pretty Woman showed Barry and countless others how powerful it could be to pour raw emotion into music. Roy's songs weren't just catchy, they were heartbreaking, Barry remembered. He had this way of singing about loneliness and loss that made you feel like he was telling your own story. I think every artist deep down is always chasing that kind of honesty, but Barry's admiration went beyond the music. He remembers the first time he met Roy Orbison in person, describing it as both surreal and humbling. Roy was very quiet off stage, Barry explained. He wasn't one of those larger-than-life personalities when the lights were off. He was gentle, polite, even shy. And then he'd step up to the microphone and suddenly he was a giant. It was like watching a transformation that always amazed me. Over the years, the Bee Gees and Roy Orbison often crossed paths in the music industry, and Barry said those meetings always left a lasting impression. There was never an ego with Roy. You have to understand, in this business it's very easy for people to get caught up in their own legend. But Roy didn't have to say much. He let this music speak, and in my mind that made him even more powerful. Barry also talked about how Orbison's career had ups and downs much like the Bee Gees experienced themselves. After dominating the charts in the early 1960s, Roy faced personal tragedies and a period where his music was less commercially successful. But then came the late 1980s when Orbison found a new audience through collaborations like that revealing Wilburys alongside Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne, and Georgia Harrison. Seeing Roy make that comeback was incredible, Barry said. It was like the world finally caught up with what some of us had known all along, that Roy was timeless. His voice didn't age. His artistry didn't fade. If anything, he grew even more powerful with time. For Barry, watching Roy rise again was both inspiring and bittersweet, especially since Orbison passed away suddenly in 1988 at the age of 52. I was devastated when I heard the news, Barry admitted. I felt like the world had lost one of its greatest treasures, and I also felt personally grateful that he had lived in a time when I could hear him sing live, when I could meet him, when I could call him a friend. Looking back now, Barry Gibb thinks about how much of Roy Orbison's influence still lingers in his own music and in the broader world of popular culture. Every time I walk into a studio, there's a part of me that asks, would Roy approve of this? Would he think this is real? Because Roy never faked anything. That's the legacy he left for all of us. In his final thoughts, Barry summed up his feelings about Orbison in words that were both tender and reverent. Roy isn't just a singer. He was an emotion, a spirit, something bigger than all office. He taught me that music isn't about showing off. It's about truth. And for it, I will always be in his debt. At 78, Barry Gibb's words serve as both attribute and a confession. After decades of fame, loss, and survival, his admiration for Roy Orbison shines with a clarity that only comes with age. It is the kind of truth that bridges two legacies, one belonging to the man in dark glasses and the other to the last surviving brother of the Bee Gees, who still carries the torch of honesty, melody, and memory.